Across the ages, beyond kingdoms and empires, there are people who refuse to break. They bled, they burned, they rose, and in their rise, they left behind something eternal. These are not just stories of achievement. They are chronicles of defiance, of madness, of faith, of spirit. Every episode, we travel into the fire where greatness was forged, not to worship the legend, but to understand the human beneath it. This is Chronicles of Spirit, where the soul speaks and history listens. She was 28, staring out a fogged window of a bus that wasn't even moving. London traffic, a pram, a letter of rejection in her bag, and the unmistakable weight of failure. No home of her own, no job that lasted, a marriage turned to ashes, a daughter asleep beside her, small and oblivious to the ruins her mother was standing in. J.K. Rowling, before she was a name printed on millions of spines, was a woman the world had quietly written off. And there in that small confinement between defeat and survival, she began to imagine a boy with a lightning scar. A boy who would live because she refused to stop dreaming. Joanne Rowling was a quiet child who wrote even quieter worlds. Born in the gray stillness of Yate, England, she was the girl with ink-stained fingers and two big dreams. She loved stories because they were safe places, worlds she could control when the real one didn't make sense. Her mother was her anchor, her warmth, her magic, until illness crept in, a slow, relentless erosion. Multiple sclerosis stole her mother's strength and eventually her life. Joanne never got to say goodbye. That grief, that unfinished sentence, became the undercurrent of every story she would ever write. She moved to Portugal, chasing escape and perhaps love. She found a marriage that ended in chaos and bruised silence. Then she found herself alone again, but this time with a baby in her arms and a country between her and everything she'd known. She returned to Edinburgh with 2 suitcases, a stroller, and the kind of exhaustion that erases even hope. By her own words, she was as poor as it's possible to be in modern Britain without being homeless. Depression wasn't poetic, it was survival. Counting coins for heating, writing in cafes because the walk there kept her from breaking. She wrote the first book of Harry Potter by hand, between feedings and cafes, on napkins, on the edges of despair. Not because she believed anyone would read it, but because the story wouldn't let her go. That is where true spirit begins. Not with ambition, but necessity. 12 publishers said no. 13 nearly said no. Each rejection a small death. Each envelope another whisper. You are invisible. But one, Bloomsbury, gave her a chance so small it could barely stand. An advance of £1,500 and advice to get a day job. She didn't. She wrote. She wrote as if her life depended on it. Because it did. When Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was finally published in 1997, it wasn't just a book release, it was a resurrection. Within a year, it became a phenomenon. Children who hated reading devoured it. Adults who'd forgotten wonder rediscovered it. Joanne had written herself, her grief, her loss, her hope, into every spell, every friendship, every act of defiance. Hogwarts wasn't fiction, it was sanctuary. For her, and for millions. And somewhere deep inside, the woman who once felt invisible began to see that magic isn't found. It's made, word by word, refusal by refusal. The world knows her as J.K. Rowling, the first author billionaire, the woman whose imagination built an empire of ink. But Chronicles of Spirit doesn't care about empires. It cares about the furnace that forged them. Her true legacy isn't fortune. It's the permission she gave millions of others to imagine, to build worlds when their own was falling apart. And yet fame came with storms, controversy, scrutiny, the heavy shadow of her own creation, because even heroes live long enough to face their contradictions. Still, one truth remains untouchable. Her story began not in privilege, but in the ashes of everything she'd lost. When she wrote about magic, she wasn't writing about wands or spells. She was writing about belief, the quiet, furious kind that keeps a soul alive when the world looks away. Joanne Rowling didn't create a fantasy. She revealed one, that somewhere inside every broken life, There's a spark that refuses to die. Because sometimes the greatest stories aren't written on parchment. They're written in survival. This has been Chronicles of Spirit, J.K. Rowling, the woman who wrote herself out of the dark.